Okay, wonderful. And you also speak Turkish, but we'll do the rest of it in English. And you're the new director of the Turkish region with World Bank and with the World Bank offices in Ankara too. And you're here. I wanted to ask you a little summary about the recent press conference that we just finished. It was about the World Bank Eastern Europe and Central Asia Economic Update. How is it relevant to Turkey? What was being discussed in that press conference?
There were essentially two messages of that press conference. The first was that the ECA region as a whole has suffered the most from the economic turmoil over the last few years. And obviously, as a result of being so closely linked to Europe, there are still some significant risks out there. But we are seeing the region emerging from the crisis. There's positive growth, some deceleration in 2012, but into 2013 we see prospects improving again. So that was the first message. And obviously the implication that the crisis has had on fiscal accounts and has also featured. And in that connection, the second big topic was social safety nets. Because since we are apparently living through a world in which crises do occur, we want to make sure that the poor are properly protected and the resilience of societies is increased to deal with these crises. And so we had a presentation on how social safety nets are organized in our region compared with other regions. And Turkey has done some interesting things like conditional cash transfer programs during the crisis. Well, I think Turkey has weathered the crisis well, partially because growth has recovered so quickly and employment has recovered so quickly. And I think that has helped keep poverty down and has been good for Turkish people. So that was rough way the summary of the session.
I'll come to the outlook, the forecast numbers for Turkey, growth and inflation rates and other rates that you'd like to share with us. But before that, I want to show our audience the Golden Growth, the publication that you recently published about restoring the luster of the European economic model. Where do you see Turkey in this model?
Well, I think a big message of that book is that when you look at Europe since the Second World War, it is what we call a convergence machine. When people come to America, they become rich as a result of being in America. That's the story of American immigration. Well, in Europe, the story of European integration is when you're a poor or a middle-income country and you integrate with Europe, you become a high-income economy. At least there's a very good chance that you do. And 100 million people in Southern Europe benefited in the 50s and 60s. 100 million people of Eastern Europe have benefited over the last 2 decades. And Turkey is part of a potential next group of countries that would benefit similarly from European integration. And the message of the book is, even though Europe needs to change because the world has changed around it, there are some very strong features of Europe, including this convergence machine, including the fact that integration helps poorer countries in Europe catch up with the rich. That should not be forgotten, and that will, I think, be of relevance, including for Turkey in the future.
So that's the rationale you're saying for Turkey that needs to be...
It should keep its eye on Europe, even though it has a broader regional outlook. Other countries are very interested in what Turkey does, and that's very legitimate, but don't forget about Europe as you do that.
Interesting. And how about your forecast, the outlook for 2012 and 2013 as well?
We are looking at 3% growth for 2012, a soft landing because the economy needs to rebalance given the external deficits. We're seeing that happening, reflected in the data. And into 2013 we look for a slight acceleration again to around 5%, consistent with the government's medium-term growth projections. So we're a little bit more cautious than the government for this year. But I would say our caution reflects the fact that we'd rather be surprised on the upside than on the downside.
How about the inflation?
Our end-of-year numbers are looking at around 7% inflation. Clearly, it needs to come down from where it is now. And there are some cost-push factors, energy prices that are pushing up inflation. So we very much welcome the statement of the central bank governor that the monetary policy remains firmly focused on the goal of price stability. I think that's a very important statement, and hopefully that will give the signal for inflationary expectations to adjust and for inflation to hit the single-digit target.
I asked the same question to our Deputy Prime Minister this morning about the soft landing, and he says that soft landing should not be mistaken or mixed with the a reduction in the growth rate because it's 4%, yours is 3.8. And I asked him the same question. I want to ask you that too. Is Turkey successful in the whole process of the soft landing?
Well, I think we see the rebalancing going on. Credit growth has accelerated. That's welcome. We see the current account adjusting. We see some positive net export numbers for the first quarter. So those are good things. I think Turkey has a structural issue that it has structurally run large external deficits. And I think it needs to implement some structural measures to improve domestic savings and to boost the competitiveness of its exports. Those are medium-term measures. So when we talk about the soft landing, what we have in mind is a rebalancing of the sources of aggregate demand towards more net exports and a little bit less in terms of domestic aggregate demand. And usually what we see is that goes hand in hand with the deceleration of growth. And I think that's welcome. I don't think Turkey should aim at the moment to keep growing at 8% because the external balances would simply grow again. But we're seeing it coming down, and so we're hopeful that that target will be achieved.
And last question, which is about the G20 IMF World Bank meetings all happening this weekend. Say that the lending capacity is up to 400 billion. Is that enough, and what happens next?
Look, it's our colleagues in the IMF, so I'm an observer as you are. Of course, we welcome the progress that's being made in mobilizing additional resources for the IMF. This is important for the confidence in the global economy and the sense that the international institutions are sufficiently equipped to react to, what are dynamically evolving events. We've been through a roller coaster ride in the world economy over the past few years, and so it's important that we have the appropriate buffers, and so we welcome the support that the IMF is receiving. But since I'm not really part of those discussions, like you, I wish them success.
Thank you very much for coming and talking about the press conference and also your opinion and the numbers for Turkey. Thank you.
Teşekkür ederim.
Ben teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much.